From time to time, I get questions regarding the repair shop. How do you start? Where do you get tools? How do you actually get it started? And one of the common questions that I get is how do you actually make it work via eBay? How do you sell your services on eBay? It's a good question because eBay is primarily dedicated to selling items, not actual services. And you also, on each service, you pay sales tax, even though like in Georgia, where I am, we don't pay tax on services, only on actual merchandise, the actual physical sales of a physical product. The service is tax-free. However, if you sell it through eBay, you do have to pay that sales tax. But that's not a big deal. The main issue is how do you actually manage that? How do you sell the products, or how do you sell your services on eBay? How do you manage it? For that reason, I created a tool that assists me with that. Number one, it helps me manage the orders. Number two, it provides automation. And that is the key of this product. Now, if you've been following my channel for a while, you know I do produce software. From time to time, I actually release it depending on whether I like it and whether it works the way I want it to work. The Rework Pro, if you're a viewer, you probably heard of it, and maybe you're a user. I started using it, or I created it because I needed it. Not because I wanted to create a competition for someone else, but none of the competition offered features that I needed. So I created my own software, and as soon as I stabilized it and used it long enough, I decided to release it. This tool is no different. My number one problem selling on eBay was basically how to manage the listings, also create the listings and stuff like that, to speed up the process of creating the listings. But most importantly, when you purchase a, say, ECM repair from me, I have to send you the address, right? Then when I receive your ECM, I have to send you a notification that, hey, I received your ECM. And then when I ship it back, you get the automated notification from eBay that the package has been shipped. But sometimes customers do need to get that address relatively quickly. If you delay even by a few hours, it's a problem for the customer, because they could have sent it the day before and they had to wait for the address. Sometimes maybe you're on vacation, maybe it's weekend. Maybe it's your day off and you didn't check the emails. So automation is very important in this business. So let me present to you PrivateBay, an eBay automation tool. Now, just a quick disclaimer, this is a very early beta release, so there is no subscription, there is no license. The process of buying it should be automated, but I haven't tested it yet until I make a first sale. It's $15, one-time payment at the moment, and in the future we'll see. Those kind of tools usually go for $10 to $50 a month. Now, my product will not be more expensive than $10 a month, and my target price is $5 a month. There's a good chance that people who will participate in this beta release will get either a free license, free lifetime license, or at least a really good deal. Because it's an early beta release, there are going to be some bugs. Some functionality might not be implemented yet. There might be some buttons that don't do anything. The application might crash. So if you do decide to participate in this release, any feedback and the reports of bugs and stuff like that would be greatly appreciated. Now, without further ado, let's take a look at the app. Now we're going to be running the application in my IDE, so ignore those little black thingies at the top. That's not what you're going to see. Also, we're going to see some source code in the back. Also ignore that, and also you can see how much memory we're consuming. When you first start the application, it'll ask you to select the directory in which all the data will be stored. This application is focused on privacy and transparency. All the data is stored locally. No financial or any kind of data is transmitted over the network, other than, of course, between eBay and the application. And all data is stored in human readable format. So you can always check what exactly has been stored, and you can edit the data in regular text file. The application will also ask you to log in. You provide your eBay username and the password that has been sent to you right after the purchase. So if everything works fine after you make a purchase, you should get an automated email with your username and password. And as soon as the application starts, it'll ask you for those. This is one-time thing on each machine. If you run this application on another machine, you have to re-log in again. There's no limitation for workstations at the moment. There are no plans to actually have that limitation, but we'll see. And at the end of the video, I'll explain why certain limitations are projected. I assure you that's not greed. So first thing, after you log in and select the local directory, let's take a look at that directory now. So after the application closes for the first time, it'll update all the persistence. The persistence is also updated during the process when you add automations and configure stuff. But you can see that I have an email over here, right? This is the email that is being sent to any user that purchases my flags. This is attached to two of my listings, one for Sierra Mike, one for Whiskey Tango flags. So this is what the user receives as soon as, if a minute, maybe 2 minutes after the purchase. I have the same one with the address for when you purchase something that you require an address to send it to me for repair. You also have a log file. Let's take a look. You can read some stuff over here, like the result of sending a message to a buyer. If there are any errors, they will also show up over here, like this one, for example. This is very common when your computer goes to sleep or you lose internet connection or something like that. You will see that the api.ebay.com is not available because DNS went away. So you can find a lot of stuff over here, and also you get a full stack trace, in which case if you face issues like this, just copy the stack trace and just send it to me, and the bug fix should be issued within a day. All of the orders are in the orders files. All the files are YAML files, the ones that store data. We can check order intents over here. That is the data for the Bidbot, right? And you can pretty much change anything over here if you want to update the, well, not current price, but your bid amount, max bid amount, right? Right now it's $2. You can change it, say, to $5 and just restart the application so it pulls that data of the file. So everything is human readable and it is modifiable. Now, I don't suggest editing anything in the orders because that's supposed to represent the data that is actually in the eBay API, but you can also read those files if need be. So let's see how it works. First thing that you have to do is just hit authenticate. If that button authenticate is visible, that means you're not authenticated. So if you click anything, it'll tell you that you need to authenticate before you can do anything, obviously. First time you hit authenticate, the window, the eBay login window will pop up, and you fill in your either login with Google or whatever you use, SSO, or just put in your email and password. After first successful authentication on each computer, when you hit authenticate, it will just authenticate by itself, no displaying windows or anything like that. Now, it will also ask you whether you want to authenticate via OAuth. Now, this feature doesn't work because I'm waiting for the approval from eBay, and this video will also provide some background on how application works, what it does, and what it requires. I also need to provide some documentation and stuff like that. So it will be still a little while before it actually works, and I'll show you how Bidbot works and what it's for, but at the moment it doesn't work. So you're gonna click no over here. Because the authentication will succeed, but the scope that I need for Bidbot is not available for my app at the moment. So essentially Bidbot is not going to work, so there's no need to authenticate. Now at the top we have two checkboxes, new order worker and a Bidbot worker. Now Bidbot worker at the moment, again, ignore that because we don't have proper scopes, but new order worker is what actually checks for new orders and puts them in queue for processing. We can hit new orders over here, and all the orders that are unfulfilled will show up in this list. If you hit all orders from last 90 days will be filled over here. The list might be incomplete. I'm still working on the handling pagination and stuff like that, but at the moment the application is not dedicated to a huge volume. So it's rather for relatively smaller sellers like myself, maybe a little bigger than myself. But if we see all orders here, we can see how long ago they were placed, and we can double click on the order to show the actual order, but there's going to be user's address and stuff, so I don't want to disclose that because that would be a leak of personally identifiable information. You can sort the list by whatever you want. As you can see, 3 hours ago I sold organic flax, and then 12 hours ago I sold another one. We have a Subaru Outback repair that I sold 21 hours and 47 minutes ago, and so on. Same thing with the listings. So we can fetch active listings. Now draft listings, this button, as you can see, doesn't work, and that's going to be relatively common in this stage of the application. Some buttons will not work, some functionality will not work. Just be aware of that. It is being developed as we speak. Now I can double click on the listing just to see its preview, the pictures. Here we have the variations, so we have different pricing depending on the how you send the board. Right, so either assembled version or disassembled version. The description, obviously, and some data over here. Right, now under right click, we can update the title very quickly. We can update the price very quickly. We can end listing very quickly, and we can copy the ID of the listing. Now, why do we need the copy ID functionality? Because we need it for automations. So here we have automations. Now, if I click on the automation that I have over here, you can see that I attached it to quite a few listings. These are the repair listings, right? And it responds to new order, and it sends eBay a message. It can also run application. Now, body template is the file that is located in our storage directory. You can provide the actual, so that's txt, right? But you don't have to. You can just put the name, and the file can be either txt, xml, html, htm, and a few others. I usually put it in txt files, but you can put it in HTML files if you want to send a HTML formatted message to the user. But I don't recommend that. Just use the text. In my view, that's the best. We can add and remove listings. That's pretty much it. Now, I do have the one that generates the license for this application, right? So if you purchase, so this is the listing for this application, it responds to new order, and it runs an application which is called, appropriately enough, BHR account creator. And the arguments are order ID and eBay user ID. Based on that, the application creates the account for you and creates a file in the eBay storage directory that contains that information, meaning your username and your password. So once this fires, the second automation picks up, which sends the current order, because that's what the file has been created, that's what it has been named, to the user that just purchased the license. So all of this should be automated at this point. So if you make a purchase, I just find out about it after a few hours. But you already have your license, you have your credentials. And the automation for my flags, same thing. 2 listings, and the email flags after purchase is sent to the user that made a purchase. Now, to create a new automation, let's get flag set, and let's send eBay message, right? And let's call it email item received, right? And add it to whatever listings, right? It doesn't matter, because right now when I hit OK, it should validate that the email doesn't exist. The body template file doesn't exist, right? But as you can see, the trigger is not new order, but flag set. That means that the flag has been assigned to the order. So the way it works, first we define flags, right? We can create a flag, and let's see, let's call this one item received. And the color, let's do a purple color, right? Now we have this flag. So now when I go to orders, new orders, I can set a flag. Let's say I did receive this board for socket replacement. I can set a flag to item received. Oh, and I misspelled it. That's fine. You can change it. The ID is being used for association, not the name. So you can update the name. So once I set it, now after up to a minute, as long as the new order worker, the automation always works. So yeah, regardless of whether the new order worker is selected or not. When you set the flag and you do have an automation, you will see it in the log that that the automation has been picked up, right? This order has been picked up as a flag has been assigned. There you go. So we see processing flag assignment for order, flag item, well, it should be received, but it's received. Received. So that way, when you receive the item, all you have to do is just set an appropriate flag, and the user will receive the message that the item has been received. So you don't have to actually physically send messages. But you can right-click, and you can send message yourself from here. Now, previous messages, these are the messages that the customer sent to you. You're not going to see the messages that you sent to the customer. We're working on it, because there's no way to fetch that from the API. I can either fetch messages that you sent to the customer or the customer sent to you as 2 different lists. So now I have to figure out how to combine those 2 lists so you can see them all. But here you can just type thank you for your business, and that's it, right? And hit send, and the message will be sent to the customer. Now the very important part, because the application uses a basic authentication, the app doesn't have access to your financial data. It doesn't have access to any of your sensitive information. It can only fetch orders, update orders, mark them as shipped, and stuff like that. By the way, yeah, you can always mark order as shipped from over here, right? It'll ask you whether you wanna mark it as shipped or not, or you can double click on the order and hit mark as shipped in that order window. But because the application doesn't have access to that sensitive information, if you're using a business account like I do, you're gonna have to add your shipping policies over here. So policy name and a policy ID. And those can be used when you want to create listings. So if you hit new service, you can give it a title, description, price. Only fixed item is a fixed priced item is supported. The auction is not supported. You need to give it location, the zip code. dispatch time, and which category you want to place it in. So what are you repairing? Car and other vehicles, computers, electronics, jewelry, watches, and stuff like that. I usually do electronics. We can add an image, because at least one image is required. Then, as you can see here, if you're not a business account, then you just pick a, let's say, UPS Ground as a service and just say $15 for shipping. And returns, whether you accept returns or not, and who pays for the return, buyer or seller. Now, if you are a business account, just check this box and select the payment policy, shipping policy, and return policy. And if you hit create, you'll get, if there are errors, we see that the item location is not specified, right? Which is this field over here, right? So if we do 30102 perhaps, create listing, and the error is that the minimum price is below 99 cents. You can't have lower than 99 cents listings, and so on. So this validation comes from the API. It's not a validation of the application. But if everything is good, let's fix this, and this should be all good. And let's do the non-business account. Now, if you hit create, it'll tell you that this listing is going to cost you 70 cents to list, right? And from here, you can decide whether you want to list it or not. Now, if you hit no and you hit create service again, actually, if you started creating a listing, right? But you have to cancel it to copy something, right? If you close the window and then, I don't know, copy a listing ID or just do something, right? If you hit new service again, all of that information is retained until you hit OK and create a listing. And if you hit no, that information is lost. But you can, this information is retained until you actually list this listing. Now, other than service, you perhaps want to sell an item. This is still experimental, but if you hit sell item, first you need to pick a category. So let's see, perhaps consumer electronics, double click. Let's see, mixed vintage electronics, hit double click, and in vintage electronics we have audio and video. In audio and video we have 8-track players, and we can hit select. And now this is the category that you selected, right? And the rest is the same. This is experimental because some information is also required that is not supported by this functionality, by this window just yet. So in some categories you might not be able to list through here. But all of this is relatively experimental. There will be a lot of automation regarding actually listing. So you can select a directory in which subdirectories are expected, and each subdirectory is its listing. So there will be a text file with the description and the name and stuff like that. There will be photographs or whatever you're selling, and then you just click one button over here and all of those directories are processed. So you can list, say, 500 listings with one click once you prepared them, obviously. Now you also have a messages that you can view over here. You cannot respond over here, although you can just click the button and the browser will open. But this again is relatively experimental. I was just kind of experimenting with it, and I don't think we need this, especially since we have our send message functionality over here. So once everything is ready, you can just check the new order worker and leave the checkbox and leave the application running. That's it. Now you have automated responder, and you can listen to flags, and there will be a functionality in automations. Again, that is not working just yet, but when a new order comes in, well, maybe not when the new order comes in, but when it's shipped, for example, you want to set a flag, right? In this case, when we do flag set, right, we pick the flag, we pick the listing that it goes to, and whatever you need to happen, either run application or send eBay message, that will happen. There will be also an ability to send a request to whatever service you want to send the request to for easy integrations. Create a shipping label. So as soon as the order comes in, the label is already printed. So basically, this application is going to help you organize your sales, organize your sales of services on eBay. It can perfectly be used for other purposes, like actually selling items and stuff. Now quickly with what Bidbot is. Again, this doesn't work just yet because of the limitation, but essentially you just paste the URL to the item that you want. Say the item at the moment is $2, one person bidding, and there's 4 days of bidding left. So you just pick the maximum amount that you want to pay for it, say $15, and you want it to be placed, say, 3 seconds before the end of the bidding. So we have a listing over here. I already pasted it over here. It ends in 5 minutes and 7 seconds. So we could do like, say, 3 seconds before the end, and that's usually how you snatch good deals, or even 1 second before the end of bidding. Now in this case, I'm going to put 900 seconds, which is 15 minutes. So the bid goes straight through, right? It's going to be validating. Let's hit Bidbot worker checkbox. So the Bidbot worker starts working. As you can see, I canceled this one. So once you hit remove, it'll switch the status to canceled, and then the worker will actually remove it. Now those cycles are every minute, but the scheduler actually works on a separate thread. So once the job is picked up, then the scheduler schedules when to make a bid at specific time. So there's no delay, there's no overlap of threads. It definitely will place the bid at when we need it, and that's very important, especially if it's 1 second before the end of bidding, because if you miss it by 1 second, you're already too late. And it switched to pending, switched to scheduled and pending, and now we stuck on outbid because the response from eBay was unsuccessful. Current bid is still at 750. Our max bid was at 10, but the bid didn't actually go through because we're still limited. We don't have access to that scope. But that's essentially how it works. And this is essentially it. That's how the application works. It's only $15 at the moment, no subscription. Subscription will be required in the future. The main reason for that is that this is not like Rework Pro. Rework Pro doesn't have subscriptions, but I also don't have any additional costs other than maintaining my infrastructure to allow the community feature to work. But even without the community feature, the Rework Pro is perfectly usable, and I don't need to maintain it in the same sense. With this tool, I have to work with eBay. I have limitations on the API, how many requests a day or a month or a week I can make. Basically the volume limitation. I have to maintain it because API keeps changing, eBay keeps changing stuff, so you have to stay on top of that. And obviously I have to maintain my infrastructure for the application to work. The keys, the developer keys, are not distributed with the application. When the application starts, it connects to my server, it receives the current keys, then decrypts them and uses them to connect to eBay. So once those keys are changed, then you just have to restart the application, right? I don't have to issue an update. But I anticipate that there's going to be a lot of updates every month. There's going to be at least one update a week. That's a lot of work to maintain that application, so unfortunately there will be a monthly subscription, which I anticipate to be around $5. or at least I hope it will be no more than $5. If you want to give it a try, the link to the eBay listing is in the description. If you do decide to give it a try, any feedback that you can give me, or any features that you would like that application to have, or any problems you encountered, everything is extremely appreciated. Any communication, any kind of feedback. Keep in mind that this is early beta release, so expect some bugs, expect some hurdles. So don't, if you use some other automation tool and you want to switch to this one, don't switch to it production-wise just yet, or don't switch like important listings or anything like that over to the application, to this app just yet, until you confirm that it works for you, and probably wait until we mark this release as a production release. This is kind of a pre-release. And with that, thank you guys very much for watching. Thank you for your support, and I shall see you guys in the next one.